let's bring him on in. Charles Wilson. So many of you all may know Charles from his political background. I did see that a great story was written about you several years ago, Charles, in the Washington Post. But Charles is, the politician's politician. He doesn't really run for office, but he's certainly in charge of all the people who are.
Maybe one day.
Oh, okay, all right. You heard it here. You heard it here. Because you have served in positions as the chair of the DC Democrats and also the Ward 8 Dems and all of that. But you have a pastime. You have a lot of friends, like those creatures behind you
Yeah.
that you spent your life with. Tell us about your bee farm.
Yeah. So I think it was maybe about 7 years ago. Somebody sent a notice on our neighborhood listserv about a beekeeping course. And I noticed the course was going to be held near my parents' house in Maryland. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna head over to my parents' house anyway. Let me stop by this course at Watkins Park and just kind of hear what they're talking about. And it was about an hour and a half, and I fell in love. I was like, you know what? I have to try this. This is a hobby I can pick up where I don't have to have a degree or a certificate or go back to school. It's like I can try this and have my own science experiment in my backyard.
Hmm.
And literally, that's how I got started with beekeeping. Literally that spring, I put 2 hives in my backyard, and I haven't turned back since. It's
Wow.
been a lot of fun. Painful at times, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've talked to people in preparation for this show, and I've heard you have I don't know if you still share it, but you had some of the best honey that people have ever had. I mean, they're speaking really highly about your honey. You still producing honey?
I do, but I do produce. Of course I don't produce the
I
honey.
know you don't.
The bees produce the honey, but yeah, no, I have several times, and I'm gonna hopefully have some more probably in June. I'm crossing my fingers that things work out.
Yeah, because we want to see you at one of those farmers markets,
Yeah.
selling. So, I mean, what did it take though to get into this bee farming?
It probably start. You have to be prepared to put in an investment for about $300 initially, and
Hmm.
that includes buying the equipment like the beehive itself. It's a lot of fun to kind of put it together on your own, just so you see how it works. Of course, purchasing the bees, a package of bees, and then I always recommend that you have protective equipment, meaning the face shield and the bodysuit and the gloves. There are some out there who are much braver than I that will go in and without any protection. But believe it or not, I'm actually allergic to bees,
Wow.
so I have to have protection. And so, starting out, initially you're gonna probably spend about make a $300 investment, and then people ask like, what do the bees eat? And pretty much you feed them sugar water, and it's pretty much you just buy a pound of sugar from the store, mix it with water, and fill up their tank every week, and they'll eat directly from that.
Wow. Interesting. I mean, as we talk about Earth Day, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about bees disappearing,
Hmm.
and what's causing that. But I guess tell me about how this really contributes to growing the population of bees, if it does. And also, because I know nothing about this, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers don't know either, but how this contributes also to maybe the other things that might be happening in your yard, growing flowers or other plants. How does it work?
Yeah, so I always kind of considered myself an environmentalist, but it wasn't until I became a beekeeper that I started paying specific attention to the climate, and the change in the seasons and how important that was to the ecosystem that we live. You want to have a healthy winter. You don't want it to be 70 degrees in December. Yes, we all enjoy the weather and be able to, put back the coat. But having consistent warm days like that is not healthy for the ecosystem. You don't want flowers blooming in December or January. You want it to be cold so it kills off a lot of the parasites that might impact that have impacted bee populations. So you really do want a healthy winter, and you want spring to start on time, because the bees are on a cycle; they stay on a cycle. So you want the flowers to start blooming in March, and really take off in April and May, and then that way, by the time June comes, they're producing the honey that you can actually sell at the farmers market. But in addition to that, I remember when I first bought my home, I would go to a local department store, and if I saw weeds in the sidewalk, I would buy the pesticide that we all have used and spray, the dandelion, because I was like, oh, that looks ugly. But bees actually pollinate, will visit the dandelion that you just spray pesticides on. And
Mm.
they will actually take that pesticide with them back to the hive, and have a detrimental impact on the health of that hive, and possibly kill off the entire hive. So,
Wow.
when you see the weeds in the sidewalk or the dandelions, don't spray them. Either use a weed whacker or just pull them up with your hand. There are some environmentally friendly products that you can use, but it's always easier just to pull them up with your hand. Um, in addition to that, so, you know, you want a healthy winter to kill off some of the parasites that can explode in the springtime and actually take over a hive. And it's happened to me once or twice, and it's an ugly scene when you have to go into a hive and the entire hive is decimated because of a parasite.
Mm. Hmm.
And so, this experience over the last 7, 8 years of beekeeping has taught me a lot and taught me how to pay attention to the climate and the products that we use.
Now, you're not in the suburbs. I didn't mention it for those who don't know. I
Mhm.
mean, you live right here, Southeast Ward 8. Our houses, most of them are either connected or very close to our neighbors. What do your neighbors say about your hives?
Well, many of them actually don't see the hive because
Okay.
it's in the backyard and it's fenced in. Um, but I've had to convince my wife that it was okay to have a beehive in the backyard. So any complaints I get, when I say, hey, you know what? Yes, I do have a beehive in the backyard, and you know what? I'll drop off a jar of honey in the springtime. Uh, when I say that, it typically quells any concerns. But I also tell people that, especially honeybees and most bees are not there to attack you. I know in the media, like, you see the killer bees or the swarm. Most bees do not want to sting you. They only sting when they feel threatened.
Mm.
In particular, honeybees, they don't want to sting you because if they do, their abdomen will pull off from the rest of their body and be stuck in your skin and they'll die. They don't want to commit suicide like that.
Mm.
So anytime, typically when you get a bee sting is because they feel threatened in a way. And I've been doing this now for 7, 8 years, and every time I've gotten stung, it's been pretty much because I didn't follow the rules of engagement when it comes to
Hmm.
bees.
Hmm.
And so you just have to be patient and understand the personality of the bees, and you should be fine. And of course, always wear protective equipment just in case.
That's fantastic. Before we close, is there any words of advice you would give to someone who's really thought about this but just hasn't taken that step?
Yeah, no, I encourage, if you're interested, we need more beekeepers out there. And just go to Google and type in beekeeping course for beginners. And you will find a number of beekeeping courses in the district or surrounding jurisdictions. I'm actually on a Telegram chat right now where I'm getting alerts for swarms going on in the district, and see if I or my fellow beekeepers around the city can go pick up the swarm and start a new hive. So there's a need for you, and I think it's a lot of fun. And the big reward is after that year investment, the honey season. That's when things really get sweet, as I would say.
Wow. I mean, I'm scratching my head now to think about picking up a swarm. What is that? I got to ask you about that before I let you go. What does that look like? What is that?
Yeah. So think about it. like you're in your house. My wife and I, when we got married, we had a 2-bedroom house, and we had our first son. And the house, it started to get kind of crowded in the house. And we said we need a bigger place to live before our growing family. I had my stuff, she had her stuff, and we wanted to move to another house. And that's what a swarm is. The bees are saying we don't have enough space where we're currently living, and we need to go find a new location to live. And so they leave the hive, meaning they swarm from the hive. They all go together, thousands of bees, and they park themselves like on a tree branch or side of a house or side of a car. And during that time that they're there, they're sending scouts out around to find a new home for them to live. And believe it or not, that's when they're the least aggressive, when they swarm, because they're just really looking for a new place to live. They're not looking to attack anybody that you see in the movies.
So how do you gather them? How do you catch them?
Sure. So normally what people do, I'll take a big plastic bucket and poke holes on the top for air. And depending on how high the swarm is, I'll attach the bucket to a broomstick and just come right under the bees and just like knock them down into the bucket, close the bucket up, and take them to
their new home. Wow. Yeah. Wow, gosh. I'm so proud of you, Charles. You're rescuing bees. You're helping bees to live. You're making honey. You're not making honey, but, have happy bees who are making honey. Yes. And contributing to the sustainability of the environment. That's really fantastic. I just want to thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us about this, to learn your other side. Yeah, and hopefully I'll see you at one of these farmers markets. I want some of that honey.
All right, sounds good.
Later on in the season.
Sounds good.
All right, take care of yourself.
All right,
Stay safe. Okie doke.